Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's TSFA virtual learning demonstration. My name is Amanda and I'm the Education Assistant here at TSFA. We are pleased to offer these virtual learning demonstrations made possible by the Texas Floral Education Underwriters. TSFA's virtual learning will be archived and made available at tsfa.org/TSFA on demand. Today our guest speaker, Stacy Bal AIFD EMC, will be presenting neo-minimal by creating thoughtful minimal designs with intention. If you have any questions during the demonstration, please type them into your Zoom control panel and I'll answer them during and at the end of the presentation. Now, without further ado, please welcome back Stacy.
Welcome to Neo Minimal. I'm so excited to be here with you today, coming to you safely from my home, hopefully to yours. Hope you're relaxing today. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to just kind of sit back, reflect, maybe learn a couple new things and leave here inspired and better off for it. So as always, if there's any questions or comments, please let us know throughout the presentation. And of course, following up with this today, reach out to either TSFA or directly to me, and I'd be happy to further any of the discussions just to make sure that you really understand any of the concepts or techniques. Also, today's broadcast will be available archived with all the rest of the sessions on TSFA. So don't hesitate to go back, enjoy this one again, freeze frame, pause, watch a technique in detail, and enjoy the whole catalog that we have for you. So today, neo-minimal. I think you might have just seen my dog in the background. My whole family is home today, so excuse me. We're doing remote learning, remote work. We're all here safe in Chicago. So backpedaling, neo-minimal. Why minimalism? Without getting too emotional, we're all going through a really tough time right now. It's affecting all of us in different ways. Whether we've all had to cut back in our business, whether we are just cutting back in our own lives. We've all seen a brand new year with new demands. Some of them are great as retail florists. Some of them aren't so great as event florists. But either way, we all have an opportunity to peel back, find the value in the little things, the little items, the little techniques that can be used now maybe minimally and then also on a grand scale. So in addition to looking at these solid techniques that can help you with your artistry and your work, perhaps you may view them as more of a meditative exercise for yourself. Maybe this is something cathartic that you need for yourself as an artist. Whatever the reason, I'm glad you're here. And I'm going to try to buzz through 6 designs in under 30 minutes, now about 25. So be patient with me. We're going to go quick, and if you need me to go back to anything, please let me know. So to get started, I'm like chomping at the bit to decorate for Christmas in my own home. Maybe because the only other place I'm at besides home is work, doing Christmas there, and then coming home. Between all these walls, we all need something energetic and fun at home. So I'm ready to talk Christmas. We're going to go with it right there before we go anywhere else. I had this beautiful set of ornaments I'm about to put on my tree in a couple days, and before I did so, I thought I would show you a little collection with what I did with them, because the color palette is absolutely delicious, and I wanted to share it with you. Gonna move it under my second view here. Thank you, Amanda. So from my top view here, you can see a whole different collection of different finishes, kind of matte, reflective, glittered in about 4 or 5 shades. Really yummy tones of forest green, kind of a slate and a mushroom color with a little bronze in there. These are a collection of ornaments in this tray that is from Smithers Oasis. This is part of their Eco Essentials line, and it's about a 2-inch deep container, watertight, biodegradable, completely eco-conscious. I use it for a lot of different things in design, not just as like a plant drip tray, a decorative one, but as you see, for collections of goods or even to house a Kenzan. So very quickly, these lightweight, shatterproof ornaments were all put together in this collection to provide a different type of a vessel. And I'm going to show you very quickly how I did that. So here is one. With this little plastic top, this is going to come on most of the round ornaments that you find at the store. Once again, shatterproof is your friend. Most of these little plastic knobs with a little simple twist are going to come right off, revealing a small little hole that can create a watertight vessel for your flowers. Some of them have a much smaller opening than others. These are particularly very small, so keeping in mind for my botanicals, I had to choose items that were very slim. For this project, because like I said to you, I'm going to be utilizing these again, I've secured all of them with a simple U-glue dash into the Smithers Oasis tray. If you're looking for something more permanent, you can absolutely use hot glue, E6000, pan melt glue, whatever fits your temperature zone and your purpose. Personally, for me, if I'm going to do a project like this and I want it to be very permanent, I highly recommend E6000 glue. Make sure you use it in a highly ventilated area. For today, because like I said, I'm using these again on my beautiful tree next week, I've only secured them with a single U-glue dash. Can you see how many I went through today? Move that to the side. Thinking about placement, so I didn't keep all of my stems completely vertical. I let them kind of move in an order and disorder formation. So you would want to tilt the water opening to where you'd want it, and then think about your placement of your U-glue dash before you would actually place it on the ornaments. The good thing about these U-glue dashes is, yes, they're semi-permanent, but they peel off really nicely, revealing just the same surface that you started with. So there's no harm, no foul onto your ornaments. And then I've just secured this inside of the structure by pressing the U-glue dash onto another ornament. And I've repeated this several times. If you look down on some of them, I kept the actual opening of the ornament down below. So they all don't have to be facing up. You can just kind of vary where you want them. I didn't want too many flowers in this. I wanted to keep it very light and transparent. So Amanda, if you want to come back to the other view for me, please. So you can see, talking about transparency, in this type of work, when you're dealing with a lightweight tray and lightweight ornaments, I highly recommend not making it too heavy, meaning that your florals have to kind of mimic the support that's available from your foundation. So because they're very lightweight, I've kept the whole thing light and airy. We've used bunny tails from Knut Nielsen, so these are dried. You could go all dried if you didn't want to put water into the ornaments. Use some seeded eucalyptus, some eryngium, and that's about it. I kind of mimicked the color palette and brought it up in here. I started to add flowers, it just didn't feel right, so I kept it really kind of light, loose, and more foliage based. Of course, the all-star here is your water tube filler. You got to get one of these if you don't have one now. You can actually get them off of websites like Amazon for sports. Actually, they're under sports sections for, like, imagine if you're a football player, hockey player, and you have a mask, that's actually how you drink water through it. So readily available in Europe in a lot of florist locations, but here in the States, you can get it off of sports supply stores or even Amazon. So that's how I filled all of my water tubes very carefully, was with the water tube filler. Any questions before I move on? Okay.
No questions.
Good, let's keep going. So I had to start with Christmas. I think that was just a little selfish for me. We're gonna move on to a technique that I actually showed something similar about 3 sessions ago. And this is using flax leaves. Believe it or not, these are flax. So these are the amazing flax leaves that came from me from Wolf Wholesale Florists, one of the Texas State underwriters. I dried them. And they're still so beautiful, but now they fit into the harvest theme. So we've got this kind of wheat, bronzy colored dried flax that now can either be painted, left natural, but is an amazing strong base for any type of natural structure that you can create. So I'm going to show you just simply how I did this. It's literally just a bundle of flax with a simple rubber band on the bottom. And Amanda, you can go to it close to you if you'd like. On here, 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 on here. Sorry.
Stacy, we are muted here. Sorry, there was a little bit of feedback, guys. We'll be back.
No worries. You got me, right, Amanda? Can you hear me now? Okay.
We can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, so right on here, and don't worry if it happens again, it's a quick fix. Right on here, all you see is a simple rubber band. Of course, this whole type of technique can be done in a more decorative fashion. We can cover this with even bind wire, a band of ribbon, anything that your heart desires. Or if you don't like that look, you can get this bind, and then once you're ready to place it in your container, you can cut it. So let's come back to the full view. So I bind them at the bottom, and all I'm going to do is hit them onto the surface of my table, so we have a really nice flat base. If you're wanting to cut your band or whatever, right now is the time to do it, but I don't mind it. I'm going to leave it on. I probably would end up doing like a yarn cover or a brown bind wire. I'll show you the end of my brown bind wire today, though, and you'll see why I didn't do it, because I have like I use mine all the way down to the last piece. I'll show you what I have left today. So now that I have my flax just placed into a dry, clear vase, always recommend clear, because you can still maintain that line, so you're getting that visual line to continue. There's two options here, well, technically three. If you wanted to do this option with dried, obviously you don't need a water source. Today, I wanted to juxtapose dried with fresh, so I'm going to sink a water tube into here. You could always fill your vase with water as well, and your stem that you're putting inside of here to add fresh, just have to make sure that it goes down into the water. But today I'm going to show you very easily how to add one water tube. So let's go back to this other view. All right, so now I'm going to show you with my water tube. I've added a U-glue dash in 2 spots, always 2 binding points, never 1, always 2. I'm going to peel off my U-glue dash. And for this length, I'm going to be using this phalaenopsis. So I want to be mindful of where I actually place my water tube. I kind of want it in the upper thirds, the actual portion of the flower, the showy part. So I'm going to put the water tube about right here. I've used the U-glue dash in those 2 places and pressed it against here on the flax. Now, because mechanics are number 1, this is what's left of my brown wire today. I promise I have more rolls, but I'm trying to go through this one first. I'm actually going to attach bind wire in 2 spots right over where the U-glue dashes are. Double to triple twist is all you need. And then we're going to just trim the excess. So now your water tube is connected to a piece of X. So let's go back to our full view again, please. All right, you're quick today, Amanda. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to add this to our natural structure. So we're going to try to sneak it in to conceal the water tube. I'm going to rotate it to what I think is the front. Place it near the center and press it all the way down to make sure it's secure. So now I can lift it up and it's in there safe and sound. The water tube like this is a little bit visible. All we have to do is sneak some flax over it, and now it can be hidden. But before we do that, let's fill it with a little bit of water. And now I'm concealing the tube and leaving just a little slit here to add my phalaenopsis. This color phalaenopsis, I don't find too often at the wholesaler. If you're getting it shipped in from Holland, you typically can, but at least here in Chicago, we usually see about 5 to 6 different colors of phales. This particular one I cut off of a plant. Don't be afraid to do so. If you need to really get the color that you need, just make sure it's conditioned properly before you go into your art piece, and then spray it with a finishing spray like Crown and Glory or Finishing Touch. So now that I have this, I'm just going to give it another fresh cut. And I'm adding the Phalaenopsis in. So if you see, I have a split stem, and I snuck a piece of flax between them. And now we have a beautiful, tall, long-lasting, really simple, showy piece with just one stem. Now this can be done in a repetitive fashion. If you were to do, which is, I think you guys know this, one of my favorites is like a tag team, a partnership, a duo. If we were to do two of these next to each other, we could make it interactive. We could add some more vines and have them trail through. One water tube is not the rule. It's just what we did here today for neo-minimal. So this technique, even though it looks expensive and big, it isn't. It's very inexpensive. It doesn't have to be done with flax. You could be using middle lino. You could go and forage outside. You could let some of the branches dry from one of your events and reuse those as well. Bamboo, river cane, birch, whatever you have, just anything in a bundle. It also does not have to taper. It could be very straight, and you could do the same type of technique. So this, on a smaller scale, in a bud vase. Let's go to our overhead real quick. So this one, all this is some middle lino that I had kind of some odds and ends in a bright green. I've cut them about all the same length, you know, a little bit kind of here and there. Honestly, if you want to keep it really, really straight, you're going to want to cut them all the same length, hitting them down on the table, placing them into a nice heavyweight bud vase. And so now they're in there with just natural tension. What I'm going to do with this is I am going to add a water tube. This time, a much smaller one. This is a 3-inch acrylic. On our other piece, we used a 4-inch. All I'm going to do is part the middle lino with my hands and sneak the water tube inside. So see how we've got it snuck on the inside? Before I go too far in, I'm going to add a little bit of water. And now it's completely concealed. So we can go back to the full view. And I'm just going to part this. And I'm going to add just a little bit of floral to it. So I actually added like 1.5 stems to this piece, just because the stem I had didn't have a really juicy flower on it. So now you can see this exact technique used on a much smaller, approachable scale. Once again, done in repetition, it could be incredibly powerful. This is another thought to even bring into the holidays. How about Valentine's Day? And we can really type of elevate our bud vase game this year by using a bundle of branches, sticks, middle lino, dried flax, whatever you have, just give it a shot. So for this one, I didn't add any of the U-glue dashes, which you can, but because it's in such a tight, small area, the opening is very small. It's not necessary. If it's something I would transport to a different location, I would always recommend U-glue on the inside. If you want to make it more permanent, by all means, you can use another adhesive. So there's the two of those. Okay, moving on. I got more to show you. Let's go to our overhead tees, Amanda, to start. Okay, so this is a simple tray that I had here in my home. You can use a plate, you can use a loamy dish, whatever you have accessible to you. And these are a cluster of small vases that I had on hand. Before these vases were put in the tray, I again used U-glue dashes in 2 spots. So on this, I've used 8. one in each corner, kitty corner on each piece. And once again, that makes them easy to lift off. Of course, if you only have access to something like cling or the Oasis double stick tape, you can use it as well. I just found that the U-glue dashes easily peel off any of the surfaces. If you're afraid of water splashing into the tray, please use cling or something a little bit hardier than the U-glue dash. So in this one, there's only one Kenzon, and I placed it, which one is it in? It's right in here. So it's a Kenzon that looks just like this, or a pin frog. Kenzon actually translates to sword mountain in Japanese. It has a little bit of cling on the bottom of it before I placed it inside of this container. And then this ilex berry branch that's sticking up a little bit here was inserted into the Kenzon. That became my main mechanic. I placed it into the Kenzon and then draped the other two ilex across. And I've only used the bind wire, this beautiful bind wire, it usually looks a lot better than that roll, in two places to create another natural structure to house my awesome, beautiful dancing cow lilies. The cow lilies are then threaded through that peach ilex to create a just kind of dynamic, flowy, order and disorder piece. So all of these are in here a little bit helter-skelter with, of course, the intention of having balance, visual balance and physical balance. This is a very simple piece, not so easy to transport unless you were going to add more branches or actually connect the branch to the calla lilies a little bit more securely. So if we can come on back to full view, more of a horizontal proportion in this piece. I really like this idea for a coffee table or a low table. I'm going to keep flowing through, guys, so we can get through to the end. Okay, one more collection for you. This piece here are tiny little apothecary jars. These I've had left over from a lot of different aromatherapy bars that I used to host before the world shut down. So I used to host aromatherapy as part of my floriculturist business. These are just some really beautiful small brown apothecary bottles, all placed in a 4x4 pattern. So there's 16 of them placed on a tray. These, once again, the mechanic, repeated, are just our U-glue dashes. And I've wrapped them all as a double mechanic in this just textured gray yarn with a single U-glue dash to kind of start it off. The reason why I wanted to show this is if you have a lot of little jars, maybe even a lot of bud vases, and you don't know how to refresh your inventory or kind of look at minimalism in a big way, cluster them together, make a community of different containers. They don't have to be all the same dimensions like these apothecary jars. They can be a collection of tall, short, you can mix colors, anything that you feel parties well together will work. So here, of course, I've just repeated the same size. Let me get one of the containers for you, separate. Actually, see, I'm just gonna pull it out of here because I packed it away. Let me unstick it. So it's just a little tiny jar. Now, the nice thing about having a collection of jars with a minimal opening is it offers you the mechanic and support without having to create a grid, a foundation. So this design can be done in under 3 minutes. The big takeaway here, this is a pet peeve of mine as well. When designing in bud vases, allow yourself a level of transparency. It doesn't serve you well to put all of the flowers right at the head of the actual vase. Give yourself a little bit of room, sometimes even a half an inch, a couple inches, of course, keeping in mind proportion of your container to your flowers, but let it breathe a little bit. It gives it a little bit more of a carefree energy and makes it less static. So let it flow, let it breathe. Okay, one more piece. A technique that I've showed time and time again, but I'm going to show it the finished piece in a more dramatic, holiday appropriate way. So if we can come to our overhead one more time, please. We'll just sneak this one off to the edge. All right, so what we're doing here, I'm going to show you just on an orchid stick with green florist straight wire. We're going to make a row of wire, and I'm only going to show you about 2 or 3. Depending on how long you want your finishing pieces of wire, you're going to keep that in mind. If we're going to do a full short piece, which this is the shorter of the Oasis wire, we don't have to cut it if you like longer spikes. So just for time's sake, let's keep it long, but just know you can customize any length that fits your project. The first one is a little bit hard to start. If you ever need a little bit of help, like a third or a fourth of a U-glue dash can get you started. But with the right tension and twist, you don't need it. So if you see on here, I've twisted it around just twice. All of my spikes are facing the same way. I recommend this third twist to get them to the point where they're facing either direction. So it's literally just taking a piece of wire and twisting it very neatly around either a circle or a stick. You'll see I did this on a beautiful metal circle at the end. When you go to your next wire, you have to ensure that you're overlapping your wires so they don't slide. So if you see, I've taken this wire under the bottom. I'm right-handed. Not that, having everything flipped on Zoom doesn't help with that anyway. So whether you're right or left, it doesn't matter. Just make sure it's comfortable and it's very secure. Placing our next loose wire underneath the first wrap, and I'm wrapping it tightly around there. 1, 2, and then 3. And so now I have my second wire done. I'll show you one more time. So now we're going to come around the second wire and thread it through like that. And now we can wrap on the other side. It's basically just about getting the wire to attach onto its neighbor. So you can see those. Now the length on here, if you don't like how long they are and you don't want to trim them, just keep wrapping them. Wrap it again. Maybe you like the idea of your wires having a bunch of different lengths. Well, guess what? You can do that. Maybe every other you wrap 4 times. Maybe the next one you wrap 3 times. The bottom line is we want to make sure that our wires do not slip and slide too much, that they're holding on to their neighbors. So this technique can be used in a variety of ways. I showed it to you on this orchid stake, but I'm going to actually bring up the finished piece for details, and then we'll pull back to the full screen. So here I've done this technique on a metal circle. You'll see how all of the wire is wrapped and all of the tails are facing one way in detail. You'll also see that I attached water tubes. Because I knew I was going to turn it sideways for you guys, I didn't fill them with water, but you obviously would want to fill them if you're putting fresh product or fresh flowers in them. Here I have attached a water tube in 2 binding points with just a small 3-inch zip tie. I chose to keep it in this kind of light color so the transparency was maintained. So Amanda, let's come to the full shot here. And for this piece, all I've used are two botanical elements. I cut off a piece of pothos from the jungle that we have in our bathroom here. We've got about 30 feet of trailing pothos in there. Pothos is a really good hardy vine. Of course, it does need a water source, but don't be afraid to try new vines and different plants in with your pieces. You can actually root it in water as well, which is really exciting. And then Phalaenopsis cut into a few pieces. just a head here, a little bit of a stem here, and another one here. Now this piece I see as a wall hanging, more as a modern wreath. So minimalistic, not a lot of products. And of course, to make that florist wire straight look, the straight florist wire look really luxe, we've used Design Master here in 24 karat gold. So just by hitting that green straight wire with a little bit of metallic, you've gone to luxe. Something like this can also be the foundation for a bridal or a bridesmaid's bouquet. Be done on a much, much smaller scale with a small embroidery hoop in wood, which is much less expensive than a metal ring. But the sky's the limit. Shapes, sizes, anything that you see fits your project or your design style or your clients can be used with this technique. So play with wrapping wire. Maybe you'll make something like this. And if you do kind of mimic any of these styles today, I would love to see what you've made. Share them, tag me, send them to me so I can see what you've made. I hope that some of these techniques inspire you during this time where we have to value each and every one of our materials more than ever, and that you enjoyed neo-minimal today.
Thanks everyone for joining us. I want to again thank all of our Texas Floral Education underwriters. Without you guys, these virtual presentations would not be possible. Thank you, and we'll see you all next time.